So a company really starting to think about their carbon management strategies, I think the first thing is to look through all of your sources of emissions and determine what's the low-hanging fruit, really. What can be affected at the lowest cost with the greatest benefit.
Depending on the size of the company, first of all, you have many different facilities if you're a global company, or maybe you're just a very local company that has one large production facility. And then within a facility, you may have very different emission points where the concentration of CO2 and the various flue gases, process gases is different. And that inherently comes with a different cost. The higher the CO2 concentration in a stream, the more likely it will be that I can capture that within a certain cost range that may be amenable to what I'm able to pay for that.
After we've cataloged the carbon emissions by source and started working down the path of how do we reduce it, it's really, working with companies like Linde who can help them look at the cost of eliminating that CO2 through different applications.
This may involve purchase of blue hydrogen. It might also involve modification of their existing manufacturing facility to capture their produced carbon.
We're also looking at, what's the easy button, right? What can we do immediately? How can we make an immediate impact? A big portion of that is the electricity that we buy, right? So we've gone around and looked at all of our electricity purchases and said, can we shift this to renewable power for little to no impact? And in a lot of places, the answer is yes. Sometimes that's cheaper. We're making sure that we let our customers know that, hey, this is an option. You buy oxygen or nitrogen from me today, how would you like some green oxygen or some green nitrogen? And the way I do that is immediately switch into renewable electricity that I purchase for that process, because there is no CO2 direct emission from those processes.
I think there are places where there's a direct bottom line benefit for companies. And we've seen it in a few examples like forklift operations or fueling for hydrogen, where if you take a look at a forklift operation today, they're battery powered. At the end of the battery life, which happens during the shift of the operator, power runs out and the unit gets sluggish. So not only is there that productivity benefit, there's also space savings. Charging batteries takes up a lot of warehouse space. And someone in the distribution business would certainly rather put their product on the shelves as opposed to batteries. And so now they've got more real estate that they can use to turn product, and it becomes another benefit. And it's just one example of where hydrogen is making a difference.
I think that decarbonizing really helps your image with your customers as well as with your employees. People want to work for a company that's doing the right thing. Customers want to deal with companies that are solving these world problems, right? Not creating them.
As consumers become more carbon intensity minded and they start caring about the carbon management of their own lives, then there's going to be a lot of value in moving towards a reduced carbon product. That can be in energy development, that can be in things like even in plastic production, can be in cement production, steel. If you're able to put a decarbonized product out there in the world, there's definitely a market for that, and that is only going to grow.
The good news is that there's a number of incentives that are finally out there that both state governments and federal governments are considering now that can help bring the cost of decarbonizing your operations very close, if not to the cost that you have today of traditional production means.
So you really have to look at what is the cost of adding a reduced carbon footprint to that asset versus replacing it with a new fangled technology that already has that built in.
Retrofitting can take a couple different forms when it comes to carbon emissions, right? Taking our carbon-based fuels, replacing those with clean hydrogen can be a pretty straightforward change of some burners and some internal technology to your process.
Purchase a different kind of fuel or feedstock for that facility that reduces the carbon footprint of it, in addition to some other carbon management ideas without having to put in hundreds of millions of dollars of additional capital on an asset that's maybe 40, 50 years old.
I think a lot of companies, when they think of their CO2 emission sources, they start with CO2 capture at the sources. Instead of thinking, can I move that CO2 capture to a single large source from a blue hydrogen facility and send hydrogen out for fuel switching to my individual assets.
Streams are being traded, if you will, in order to create a feedstock that can produce a chemical. Scale does help some of these applications.
There are intrinsically companies that want to capture their emissions and not emitting them to atmosphere. And then there are companies that want to use CO2. Then there are companies that are able to transport it. And there are companies that are able to capture it. And I didn't go in a sequential order here, but in general, there are very different stakeholders within the value chain of CO2 or carbon management and working together, because in the end, it's all coming down to coming to the best solution for everyone. This is what we all come together for, and the community is growing. I see that there's a lot of movement now in the market, which we want to even amplify with our activities at Linde.